I have the honor of presenting our today's keynote speaker for the Staff and Faculty Symposium. So excited. Yes. Okay, so Dr. Terri Jett is the Associate Vice President and Senior Diversity Officer at St. Mary's College of California. With a strong background in political science and a passion for social justice, Dr. Jett brings extensive experience in leadership, diversity, and community engagement in her role. Her career has been marked by a commitment to fostering inclusive environments and promoting dialogue on issues of equity and diversity. Dr. Jett's experience and dedication to creating transformative change make her a valuable addition to the St. Mary's College community. So please give a warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Dr. Terri Jett.
Thank you. Thank you, Sweta. And thank you to faculty, staff, symposium, committee for inviting me to give the keynote today. I am truly honored. I live for programs like this, where I get to be part of a learning community of a cross-section of colleagues from the campus, across the campus, providing me with great insight from their vantage point and expertise. And excuse the shameless plug I'm about to give, but I'm thrilled to be in partnership with Sweta and the library and our ongoing lunchtime brown bag movie series. We had so much fun planning this, and it's going to be something that's ongoing. So we have a political and a horror theme for next Wednesday. So be sure and bring your lunch to the library and watch this film with us, Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. And I want to say a little something about my love for libraries and librarians. Growing up in Richmond, my dad worked at City Hall of Richmond. He was a public finance officer. And after school, he would come and pick me up. I was kind of a latchkey kid. And he would drop me off at the Richmond Public Library, which was right next to the Civic Center. It's in the Civic Plaza. And I would go there so often that the librarians there would get to know me, especially the children's librarian, but she would have a stack of books waiting for me. And that was just really special for me and just really enhanced my connection to libraries and librarians. And you'll see a little bit more when I talk. I'm going to talk a little about myself today, and you'll see that I have carried that through my career. I'm going to talk about a few things that I've done as a Black publicly engaged intellectual, which I hope you will see informs me in the work that I do as a DEI officer, who is also a faculty member here at St. Mary's. I've not been employed here very long, though I do have 25 years of work in academia behind me as a political science professor. And even in the midst of all the institutional challenges that we face here at St. Mary's College, I personally can experience a considerable amount of joy because of the people that I work closely with here, which is actually quite a few people that bring me joy. Faculty, staff, students, administrators, and brothers, especially one brother in particular. There are people here that I genuinely love just because of who they are. That's it, just because of who they are. When I was a graduate student at Auburn University in Alabama, I was introduced to a book called Breaking Bread: Insurgent Black Intellectual Life. It was essentially a conversation between Cornel West and Bell Hooks. And in that book, they discuss things such as the weight of responsibility that many Black intellectuals feel with regard to how their work is serving their community, while simultaneously they've often been alienated from their community because of their intellectualism, which is sometimes aligned with whiteness or proximity to a white identity. They also discussed how Black intellectuals are never fully accepted into the academic environment, especially if their work is too focused on their own people. The book did not offer suggestions on how to fit. On the contrary, they offered a pathway for maintaining a sense of authenticity through academic and public and community engagement. Stated differently, the responsibility that we carry. I started a Visiting Black Intellectuals series at my previous institution just to disrupt the concept of who owns knowledge and who we define as intellectuals. And the first person I brought in as part of that series was a poet by the name of Ian Manuel. He was a client of Bryan Stevenson of the Equal Justice Initiative. Ian committed a crime when he was 13. He shot a woman who actually survived. He was then sentenced as an adult to 25 years in prison, and because he was sentenced as an adult, he served 18 of those 25 years in solitary confinement. And through it all, he actually went through his own restorative justice process. He contacted the victim, developed a friendship with her, and then ultimately Bryan Stevenson got him out of prison because he was able to get the laws changed where youth that commit crimes such as the one Ian did are not sentenced to life in prison, especially when the person survives. So he's a poet, and he also has a memoir out called My Time Will Come. My reading of the Breaking Bread text aligned very closely with my own faith background, which is not Catholic, it's Presbyterian, but it is steeped in Black liberation theology, which at its core is about using your education and talents for the betterment of your community, directly or indirectly. I find public intellectual and community engagement work to be most fulfilling when acting as part of a collective and less so as an individual. As a faculty member who yearned to extend the walls of the classroom, I blurred the lines of teaching, research, and service and activism. Furthermore, early in my academic career, I lived on campus, like your residential directors do, with my two children for several years, which provided me a more holistic perspective of students. I was also awakened to the expertise of student life, student affairs professionals. As a faculty member, I taught a course on activism while engaging in activist work. I took students to Alabama, Birmingham, Montgomery, and Selma, while also doing research on Gee's Bend Ferry, which is in Wilcox County, Alabama. I traveled twice with students to South Africa, and on 2 occasions I took students to the USDA while I was researching the Pickford, Keepseagle, Garcia, and Love cases against the USDA. Actually, that's me at the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, and there's probably students behind me or somewhere. Someone. Does anyone recognize the person in the middle here at the USDA? That's Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack. And so I was able to kind of meet him and get him to connect with the students. And is anyone familiar with the Pickford, Keepseagle, Garcia, and Love cases? Those were settlements up to about $7 billion with Black farmers, women farmers, Latino farmers, and Native American farmers that took place during the Obama administration. So it was against the United States Department of Agriculture. I ran our departmental internship program, creating pathways for students to work with organizations of which I was also connected. And if you're asking yourself, how did she do all that and maintain neutrality in the classroom? Read Howard Zinn. I went through labor organizing training with Jobs with Justice, working on labor campaigns for hotel workers, custodians, teachers, cafeteria workers, and librarians. I served on the board of the ACLU of Indiana, including 7 years as the president of the board, where a lot of the work was on advocacy for issues like marriage equality and free speech, while I also wrote a monthly column for a couple of years for both the Indianapolis Star, that's the major newspaper there, and the Black-owned newspaper, the Indiana Recorder. I served on the Indianapolis Public Library Board for a term before I was kicked off, and then wrote about it for the Indianapolis Anthology, and I called it Requiem of a Womanist Library Board Member. Happy to share that article. I also started a program called Books and Breakfast at the Martin Luther King Community Center in Indianapolis, which was located in the same Butler-Tarkington neighborhood as the university where I worked. That's me right there on Pride Parade in Indianapolis. That was a lot of fun. See how it moves? Amazingly enough, Indianapolis has one of the largest Pride parades, Pride celebrations in the country. I think it's like third or fourth largest. Books and Breakfast was a program that was created by an organization called Hands Up United that was located in Ferguson, Missouri, and created following the killing of Michael Brown Jr. by Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson. I traveled to Ferguson with a faculty colleague of mine who was in the history department, and that fall, she and I taught side-by-side classes, the politics of Ferguson and the history of Ferguson. I brought that program as a tool of healing for the Butler-Tarkington neighborhood, where 4 young black men were also gunned down that same summer as Michael Brown, though their deaths were not at the hands of the police. That program is actually still in place, as I attended a Books and Breakfast discussion just last Saturday. While there, we were discussing the book Loving Corrections by Adrienne Maree Brown. And if I can take a moment to do another shameless plug, I am going to be starting a campus-wide book reading of Bell Hook's book, All About Love. And I thought about it's going to start in the springtime, so look for that opportunity to sign up. It'll be rather informal, but I think it'll be a good time for us to engage in conversations about working across silos, but even more so about how we can come to love one another and appreciate the work that we do and one another as humans. I got that idea because there was a group of students that had engaged in a walkout or protest, and I saw a film of a student, and it was I think it was in March, it was right before I came here, and the student identified as Black and queer, and he kept saying this phrase, "Where is the love? Where is the love?" He's a student here. And so hearing him and watching him say that, and that he really wanted to be a part of St. Mary's community, but he was feeling marginalized and isolated, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to do something about that and create an opportunity for us to really think about, where is the love? And how do we really celebrate one another and provide a loving environment for our students and for one another to thrive? Showing you just a couple other pictures. So I was going through all these pictures, I was like, well, I might as well show them. So this is at the National Women's Studies Association meeting with some faculty colleagues, and we met Gloria Steinem, and that was really exciting for me. Although she asked me, why do you live in Indiana? I said, that's a good question, which is why I no longer live there. And then I taught a political humor class, which I typically teach during this time period, during the fall election of the presidential cycle, and I had the opportunity to have Jordan Peele came to our university while I was teaching that class, and then he met with my students for about 45 minutes, so that was really quite exciting. And as part of my work serving on the ACLU board, I was able to also meet Michelle Obama when she came to speak in Indianapolis. She's a good hugger. I get these hugs, and they're like, are you my best friend? A little squeeze and bubble up. So a few years ago, I was approached by a couple of young producers, Kyle Travers and Scott McAllister, at a local public television and radio station to serve as a moderator of short, digestible civics lessons. This was about 4 years ago, and I've done over 50 to date. Though I have had no theater training except for the role of the voiceless Tinkerbell that I played in second grade at Kensington Elementary School, I agreed to do it. Why not? It sounded challenging and fun. So these lessons are called Simple Civics, and we have actually received 2 regional Emmy nominations for these videos, although I haven't won anything yet. I've done over 50 of them, and I actually just recorded 8 more, which will be shown next year. But I'm going to show you a couple of them. Civil Civics was first available through the WFYI, which is local public television, and it also plays on the radio station there, but now it is on PBS Learning Media, which is a national platform, and there are also lessons that are available that accompany them for K through 12 that are created by retired teachers. So I'm going to play a few of these videos. How would you split this pizza 10 ways? Not too hard, right? What about 100? Better yet, how would you split this up into 435 equal slices and then serve it proportionally to 50 different groups of people? Now that's a challenge. Every 10 years, the United States is faced with a similar but far less tasty dilemma as it reworks the makeup of our House of Representatives. Think we're gonna need a bigger pizza. In Congress, the Senate is meant to give the states an equal say, with each state electing 2 senators to represent the people. The House of Representatives is meant to represent the people based on population. The more people that live in a state, the more of the House's 435 voting members that state claims. Every 10 years, after the census is conducted, the process of apportionment reworks the makeup of the House to reflect where the people live across our country, and some states may pick up or lose seats depending on how their population changed. But how does apportionment actually work? Better grab a calculator. Let's start from scratch. The first step is to ensure each state is given at least 1 voting member in the House, so that takes care of 50 seats. From there, we use what's called the method of equal proportions to divvy up the rest of the 385 seats. This formula uses a state's population and the number of seats it could receive to assign what are called priority values for each potential seat. Once these priority values are calculated for each state, the values are then ranked from highest to lowest to determine the order in which the remaining seats are distributed. The 51st available seat goes to the state with the highest priority values. The next available seat goes to the next highest value, and so on, until we filled all 435 seats. The higher your state's population is, the higher its calculated priority values will be. This is why our more heavily populated states like California, Texas, and Florida have many more representatives than our lower populated states, which may not get any extra seats beyond their 1 guaranteed spot. It's important to note that 435 is simply the number of voting members of the House. 6 non-voting seats are reserved for Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, and 4 other U.S. territories, American Samoa, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands. These members do not get to vote on the House floor, but they can introduce legislation for consideration in the House and vote in the committees they're members of. It may be a lot of math, but this task of reapportionment helps ensure that our makeup of the House of Representatives reflects the makeup of our United States population. Now we're talking. This is an important one right here.
Topical.
Yeah, and I did it years ago.
When you go to prison, you naturally give up some of your rights. For example, it would be tough to hold on to your 4th Amendment right to privacy when you're being heavily monitored by guards 24/7. Most states strip your right to vote as well. That said, you do keep some of your constitutional rights no matter what. But could you say, run for president from prison? You're gonna need a heck of a campaign slogan. Unfortunately, the Constitution is pretty vague when it comes to the rights of prisoners. A prisoner's First Amendment rights remain in effect during their sentence, so long as it doesn't interfere with the safety and security of other prisoners and prison staff. Prisoners are also free to practice their religion, but unfortunately, there have been several cases of prisons violating this policy. One prison in South Carolina barred all print media except for the Bible being sent to inmates. These cases are fought by rights groups like the ACLU. The Eighth Amendment prevents setting excessive bail and fines, and courts have decided that juveniles cannot be sentenced to life without parole. The Eighth Amendment also protects prisoners from cruel and unusual punishment. What does cruel and unusual mean? Courts have ruled that guards can inflict pain upon prisoners if it's done to restore order rather than maliciously. They've also decided that prison overcrowding and ignoring a prisoner's medical condition violates the Eighth Amendment. But back to our question, could you run for federal office while you're locked up? While it's unlikely that you'll win, there's actually nothing stopping you from doing so. The Constitution has 3 conditions to run for a seat in the House of Representatives. You must be 25 years old, have been a citizen for at least 7 years, and must live in the state you want to represent. To be a senator, you must be 30, a citizen for 9 years, and live in the state you want to represent. To be president, you have to be 35, a natural-born citizen, and live in the U.S. for 14 years. And that's it. States could set up requirements for their own positions, but can't put any additional requirements in place to stop you from running for federal office. And if you're bold enough to run for office from prison, you might as well go big anyway, right? There are a few high-profile cases of folks running for office from prison. Representative James Traficant of Ohio took 15% of the vote in 2002 while serving an 8-year term for bribery and racketeering. Eugene V. Debs ran his 5th and final presidential campaign from prison in 1920, getting just over 900,000 votes, or 3.4% of the popular vote. And in 1798, Matthew Lyon actually won re-election to Congress from inside his jail cell. So going to prison is not a deal breaker if you're looking to run for office, at least at the federal level. What rights do you think all prisoners should be guaranteed? Let us know in the comments.
Last one. Did I tell him? Okay, just one last one. Also fun.
2018 was dubbed the Year of the Woman after a record-breaking number of women were elected to Congress. And going into the 2020 election, more women announced their candidacy for president than any point in history. What you may not realize, though, is that women have been campaigning for the highest office in the land for 150 years, even before they could vote themselves. Hillary Clinton's run in 2008 and 2016 are well documented, as is the 2012 run by Michelle Bachmann. But as we look to the future, let's meet a few other extraordinary women who've thrown their hats into the ring. The year is 1870, 50 years before the ratification of the 19th Amendment granting women the right to vote. In an era where women could not enter most stores or restaurants without an escort of a man, Victoria Woodhull was used to breaking gender norms. A former fortune teller from Ohio, Woodhull used connections with shipping tycoon Cornelius Vanderbilt to become the first female stockbroker on Wall Street and later the first female newspaper owner. In 1872, Woodhull accepted the nomination of the newly formed Equal Rights Party. In an apparent attempt to combine the women's suffrage movement with the civil rights movement, she nominated Frederick Douglass, a former slave turned prominent abolitionist, as her vice presidential candidate. Douglass was not informed of this choice and never acknowledged the nomination. Following a scandal unrelated to her presidential campaign, Woodhull spent Election Day in jail, and there is no record of her receiving any votes. Some scholars debate the legitimacy of Woodhull's run, as she would not have been old enough to be president until the following September. Despite a complicated legacy regarding her beliefs, you can't talk about women running for president without a nod to Victoria Woodhull. In 1940, Americans were headed back to the polls under the shadow of World War II. Hardly the time for jokes, right? Not according to Gracie Allen. The vaudevillian and comedian was famous for her zany act with husband George Burns and for the Paris publicity stunts. One such stunt was a campaign for president on the surprise party ticket. In order to boost ratings for the Burns and Allen show on CBS Radio, the pair went on a whistle-stop tour across the country.
Even big politicians don't know what to do. Gracie doesn't know either, but neither does by saying,
Franklin Roosevelt went on to win his third of four presidential elections, but Allen did receive some write-in votes, and that's no joke. The election of 1972 is well known for President Richard Nixon's landslide victory over South Dakota Senator George McGovern, but it was one of McGovern's primary opponents that we want you to meet. Shirley Chisholm was a nursery school teacher before getting into politics to address racial and gender inequality. In 1968, she became the first African American woman to serve in the U.S. House of Representatives. And 4 years later, she became the first Black candidate, male or female, to run for a major party's presidential nomination.
I am not the candidate of any political bosses or fat cat or special interest. I am the candidate of the people of America.
Her slogan was "Unbought and Unbossed," referring to her grassroots campaign, which relied heavily on the support of college students and her fearless nature. Unfortunately, discrimination severely hampered Chisholm's candidacy. She was initially barred from televised primary debates and only appeared on stage with her fellow candidates one time after filing a complaint with the FCC. Chisholm also faced a challenge getting on several state ballots. Still, Shirley Chisholm would go on to earn over 150 delegate votes at the contentious 1972 Democratic National Convention, about 10% of the total votes. So as you can see, while we may not yet have elected a woman to be president, that's hardly stopped them from trying for decades, even when they wouldn't have been able to cast a vote for themselves.
So I have enjoyed and really loved my time so far. The few months that I've been here at St. Mary's, it's very easy to work with people just across various places. There's a lot going on here. And this was move-in day, which was really exciting. And I was anticipating move-in day because everybody was like, oh, move-in day, and I just couldn't wait. I mean, I had butterflies. I was like, move-in day. And it was kind of cold that day, but I didn't care. I got out there and was hanging out with my friends. And then that's Father Fondé, who is also fairly new here, but that was at the academic liturgy, which was also really nice to be a part of and to experience. So that's me happily at St. Mary's College with Desbarg and Angela Street in color. And I'm Indy Muscooby, who has not made it to campus yet. But he will. That's my rescue, my puggle that has been with me for years. And so I see little dogs here and there running around campus. And so Scooby will make his debut soon. All right, so that's it. Thank you.
Last question.
Oh, questions, sure.
Yeah, I'm Jenny Burnside with Quack and Seminar. I'm curious about the process of making these videos that you make. It's incredible, and I think it should be distributed to the local schools for the children's learning.
Oh, thank you. So these videos are made in a studio in Indianapolis, and they're available for free, widely distributed. They're on YouTube and TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, but they're on there. And then also on the PBS Learning Media platform. And sometimes I'll just go just to see how many views they actually get. There seems to be an uptick, especially during, I think, AP government time, when students are preparing. They need a quick lesson on civics, and I cover a lot of topics. I've covered all of the amendments, the 27 amendments. So my highest view has been 40,000.
All right.
Not 100, what it was, but yeah.
Time for one more.
I'm Sarah from the library. Yay. That was not a plan. We didn't do that. My question for you is, now that you've been here for a while and you've been at bigger institutions and are coming back home to the Bay Area, what sticks out as being different in good or bad ways from other institutions that you've been in?
What sticks out? I think there's quite a few things. One is the environment, and by that I mean when I first came to campus for my interview, and honestly, I had not come to St. Mary's. I had not stepped foot on this campus, even growing up in Richmond, until I came for a job interview for this position. So that's one thing I think about quite a bit, is how to extend the fabulousness of St. Mary's out into the Bay Area, so others don't miss it. And it's the fact that it's kind of tucked in the mountains. It's somewhat isolated, but there's a lot of diversity here in terms of all the different types of people that work here. And I think also the Lasallian principles give it a different feel. For me, the previous institution I worked at was founded by the disciples of Christ, but it moved away from their faith traditions in the 80s, actually, before I even got there. And so that does allow, in fact, I feel it allows for diversity and inclusion work to be anchored in faith, but to also be a vehicle to hold all of us in the institution accountable for the work that we do. So that's very, very different. It's a very diverse student body from where I worked previously, and just Northern California has a different feel to it than Indiana for a number of reasons. But yes, and I have described. People have asked me, and I've described it as quirky, but I mean that in a good way. There's a lot of creativity kind of happening in the atmosphere, and when I'm in a lot of meetings throughout the week, and I hear a lot of really interesting perspectives and analysis, some of it anchored in data, but some of it just new ideas on how to address a number of things, and that actually excites me. So yeah. That's really it. And it's been very easy to get to know people. I came here during spring break. That's when I started. And it was fairly empty, but I was still able to just kind of walk around campus and meet some people. And my swimming partner, Lila, just came by my office and introduced herself. And that's been just wonderful. So, yeah, very easy to get to know people here.
We do have
One more question. Any more questions?
Actually, I have a quick one, but maybe the answer is not quick, but
Okay.
you can what can we do, all the different departments, to help you succeed?
Let's see. I would say some departments, and I don't know which ones, I'm just saying some, probably need to do a little work on pausing and getting to know one another in the department. Because that's what I have discovered in a few places that have asked me to kind of come in and to provide some, they say sort of DEI training, but the first thing that you really need to do is to get a sense of, well, who actually is a part of the department? And where do people come from? And so with one department, I won't mention it, but I actually went in and all I did was have everybody sit in a circle and tell their story. And that was, I think, very helpful for the department, that there's a lot of people here working side by side, doing things together, and you actually don't really even know each other. So that goes a long way in really being able to do the work, because some of this work is actually very challenging. It also is a way to mitigate conflict, because then you will have a better understanding when someone has an idea or has a different way of thinking, when you really get to know someone, you have a better understanding of why they are thinking that way. And then also maybe do some values leveling in your departments. Make sure you're meeting regularly. With a department that I was at, actually the science department, we did have to go through a process where we had a retreat and came up with, well, what are our shared values? And we also did a check-in with each and every department meeting. And so we wouldn't just come together, and we came together every other week. We wouldn't just jump right in there. We would actually have a moment before we started the meeting where we would talk about our values. We would remind ourselves of the values that we came up with, and then we would also check in with one another and state our intentions for the meeting. So, for example, if you weren't really feeling 100%, you would say, well, my intention is to stay focused, but I don't know how much I can actually contribute to this. And then always have an agenda. I do not like to go to meetings without agendas. That actually helps because people's time is valuable. And so you want to make sure that when you are coming together, that you know why you're coming together, even though you want to take some time. So I would say that's kind of that internal, external work that people can do to really just make the environment more inclusive and diverse. And then also take an accounting of your space and see if your own space is very welcoming. I want to give a shout out to, I don't know if it's Jess here, and it's Jess Fargan is here. Is Jess here? No. Oh, next door. Anyway, if you haven't been to Jess Fargan's office, you need to go. When I first went to Jess Fargan's office, and she's in her second office now, I was like, oh my God, this office is amazing. And it's just comfortable. And the work that she's doing is very challenging, but the space that she's doing, the space that she has created allows for trust to take place and for people to kind of relax. That's how I have felt when I've gone into her office. And so I've tried to create a similar thing too, but I need the furniture that facilities, anybody facilities here? So I'm just joking around. I love facilities. But yeah, that I think also will help quite a bit of taking just, a sense of when someone else is coming into my space, is this a comfortable space for them? Especially students. That's really important. Okay.